Oh, you're fine. Are you okay actually to talk now? We'll make sure
Yep,
okay. First I wanted to thank you actually for taking my call
of course.
and part of the deal actually is that I've known for quite some time the industry is going to the E&O and requirement, but a lot of the contractors out there, everybody likes to find a conspiracy, and I like to
Right,
see them every now and then. But to me, this is
right.
just part of the landscape, of business.
Exactly.
And so I just wanted to excuse me, talk about a couple of things today, and I actually did a little research on you, and it looks like you actually have an MBA. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And this is one of the things that I really wanted to drive home to everybody, and I also looked at your company. And before I go any further, I want to tell everybody that I actually get insurance through you all, but I'm not a spokesman. I get
Right.
no compensation whatsoever.
Right,
This is more of
right.
a FYI deal. But
Sure, sure.
with that said,
No, I
your
appreciate
guys'
it.
company has been around since '72, and when I actually looked at the makeup of the people whom are on your page, this is almost like a who's who of professionals in the industry. This isn't fly by night, and
That's correct.
and what it also brought a bunch of this about is back in 11, I think it was December of 11. Safeguard, I think, was one of the first ones that said, "Hey, here's what we require, and here's a couple of the companies that you can go to: York, Jersey, Leonard, and Brunswick." And we
Hmm.
actually did. We went to York, Jersey. We spoke with them a little bit, and for whatever reason, we opted not to do business with them. But when we came to you guys, what I found was that the process was just very easy, was very straightforward. It was very cut and dry. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, maybe in your own words, if you could tell me and maybe other people errors and omissions. To a lot of people that's Greek, and in your words,
Sure,
what does that mean?
sure. Errors and omissions is going to cover your professional service. So a general liability policy covers if you are on someone's property and a mistake happens or property is damaged, where someone is actually injured or property is damaged and it just happened because you stepped in the wrong spot or it was purely just a accident. Errors
Yes,
and
ma'am.
omissions is also the same term as professional liability. The same term. It's like apples. It's tomato tomato. It's the same. Used interchangeably. The two terms, professional liability and errors and omissions, and it covers the actual job, the profession that you're doing. So if you were to make a mistake or if there was to be a claim based off of the work that you're doing as your profession, as a property preservationist, as a inspector, and there's an error in what you're doing, and the claim is based off of the actual work that you do, not an accident, but your judgment,
Right.
your professional service, that's what errors and omissions covers. A
Excellent.
couple of examples, if you miss something in your inspection that comes back and can lead to a claim that and the inspector was faulted and should have found that item that he oversaw or missed, or mistakes happen. People make mistakes. That's what this is going to cover. Sadly, with the uprise in foreclosures, there's a lot of different homes that are on the market that that are going through this process. We've had a couple of claims where the vendor, the contractor actually inverts some numbers and will go to the wrong address and
Right.
perform their work at an incorrect home. And you can imagine someone who is paying their mortgage comes home to an empty home. There's going to be some serious lawsuits for a
Right,
situation like
right.
that. We've had that happen often, and that's a mistake. And that's what errors and omissions covers. That's what professional liability covers. It's like the malpractice insurance, if you
Right.
will, of property preservation and mortgage field service work.
Excellent. And and one of the things that we actually shopped it locally. We're here out of the state of Tennessee, and we went to the Tennessee's largest insurance provider. And
Mm-hmm.
we said, look, we have GLI right now. We had actually our general liability with an outfit that was third generation. So we thought, surely, not a problem. We'll get this spun up. And surprisingly, they didn't even know what we were talking
That's
about
correct.
when we first said property
Right.
preservation and E&O. They came in. Their baseline quote was at about 3,500 per year.
Sure.
They didn't
Yeah.
care if we made a penny or not. And that's the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is the simple fact that whether it's through you guys or whomever, we found our numbers. And I also know, and we'll talk a little bit about this as well, that numbers, are based upon a lot of parameters. However, our numbers were just, I mean, as low as we could get was with you guys. I mean, for
Right.
example, I think we're paying about, 100 and some change, and that was based upon the volume and the amount of work we had for that reporting time. But
Right.
I wanted to ask you a question with specificity to that. Does the industry, I don't know if you can answer, do they maintain like records of how many people are actually toting this kind of insurance, or?
No, I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are uninsured, and that's why companies like Safeguard are requiring it to have, vendors to start having this insurance. And going back to your point, errors and omissions is a very niche coverage. So a general agent may not have the knowledge nor the insurance markets, meaning the carriers that will write it. If they do, they might have to go to a specialty market, which is going to be much higher rates. What the good thing is about our policy is that we, working with our carrier, who's Hanover Insurance, created this policy. It was manuscripted, handmade by their underwriters for this specific industry, for this specific type of contractor. And the policy did not exist up until we started selling it. And what we recognized the need and said, they need general liability and errors and omissions. So what their underwriters did in partnership with us is created this 2-in-1 policy that has everything that Safeguard needs. So there isn't, York Jersey and Leonard did similar things with their carriers, but a random, Main Street agent does not have access to either of our three programs, nor would any other carrier have a product like this available where it's both coverages in one.
How far back, if you might know, how far back does this type of, if you will, the 2-in-1 situation, where does it trace its roots? I mean, is there a year maybe you could put your finger to?
There's really not a year. I mean, I think as time has evolved and businesses have evolved, it used to be that only doctors and lawyers needed malpractice insurance.
Right.
But now, because there's so much exposure and, society is realizing that anybody can sue anybody for anything, and a general liability policy is not going to cover, a professional service done by someone who is a professional. A lot of the carriers have started to expand their product lines and add an errors and omissions insurance along with a general liability policy. But an underwriter looks at each type of business, each class of business as eligible. So if you were a photographer, for example, or an interior designer, and you wanted to have a general liability policy along with an errors and omissions policy, you could go to your Main Street agent who could call up a national carrier, like somebody like the Hartford or, CNA, any of the Main Street carriers,
Sure.
and say, I have an interior designer, and I would like both errors and omissions and general liability. And I would say for the last 10, 15 years, they've started to package those policies. But with the risk that is involved with property preservationists, that's not something that Main Street carriers are going to include inside of their underwriting box.
Right.
So right off the bat, because the contractors are in the field that you're not going to be eligible for a Main Street carrier.
Right. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. I reached out to a lot of the guild members, and they had kind of two main questions, and the biggest one that they asked was, some of the people in the industry, for example, merely do inspections, for want of better words. Others actually handle the REO P&P, where they're actually doing physical. Is there when they actually go in to fill out their application, is this something that they need to specify, or also some of them actually do both sides? Now, HUD has kind of reined that in a little bit on the pre- and post-conveyance aspect, with the new regulation under 5, I think it's 5.1.12.5, but by and large, do they need to make it a point to inform you guys when they apply what specifically they're doing?
Yes. On the application, there's a question called description of business. If someone is truly an inspector and an inspector only, they should write inspections only. But even if they're doing 1% of REO work, they would not be considered an inspector only. So there are some things that we can do to make the pricing more palatable if they are just truly inspectors. But, if we were to find out that they were doing any sort of REO work and they did not disclose that, then there would be some serious red flags.
Sure, absolutely. And I had a question in the hypothetical the person applies to you all. If they were in fact approved for a policy, do they have to pay all that up front, or do you guys have some type of plan where they could make payments perhaps?
Yep. We're the only ones of the three that offer interest-free payment plans. What we require is 25% of the premium down as your down payment, and the remainder is divided into equal monthly installments, interest-free. There's no fees attached to the drop. There is an initial $100 setup fee to become a client, but that's only the first year.
Sure.
And the payment that is pulled each month can be set up electronically, so it'll just pull right out of your checking account, and you'll never have to pay a bill physically.
Excellent.
If you want to, you can still write a check. That's not a problem, but most contractors find it convenient to be able to just have it electronically withdrawn from their account.
Excellent. That was one of the biggest things, and one of the other things that I had a big email push on this. A lot of the people, these were more of the conspiracy centered ones, felt that there was some type of, for want of better politically correct word, that there was some type of kickback involved, if you will. Not the situation they presented to me was, what's happening here is that client A, and we'll call that a national, is requiring this, and thus whether insurance company A is going to give a percentage of every policy back. And I said, I believe that there's state regulations that absolutely prohibit that. However, I wanted to just to clear the air and just to dispel any of those type of rumors.
Sure. It's highly illegal. That would be called rebating, of which is completely illegal, of which our agency could get, our license taken away from us if we did something like that. Safeguard and Brunswick has absolutely no affiliation other than we're an approved vendor for insurance from them. Where they're coming from is in the long term, it's going to save them money, because if a vendor gets in a situation where there is a claim and they're sued, Safeguard is always sued along with them, because they are working underneath Safeguard. And if a vendor doesn't have the proper insurance, Safeguard's the deep pocket going to have to, be paying in towards the suit as well. And if Safeguard knows that the contractor has the proper insurance and is covered correctly, then they know that right out the gate they're better off than when they started. So they're looking at it as it's just like an extended level of insurance for them to know that their contractors are insured correctly. So there's absolutely no monetary gain whatsoever from Safeguard from any of the three of us. We're just, we have the approved form.
In all fairness, I also wanted to point out, because, for example, we actually work for a couple of other clients. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, people whom do have, for want of better words, a diverse portfolio of clients that they work for, a lot of them actually approve your insurance. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct. MCS, Mortgage Contracting Services, they followed Safeguard's lead and have 4 of us approved, and we're one of those 4. We're also approved by all of the other large LPS, MFS, Five Brothers, just trying to Cityside, FAS, everybody. So there isn't one that we've come across that we are not approved on.
Excellent. That's one of the things I wanted to point out, that this is an industry-wide, situation. Right. And the biggest problem that I think that, and especially when I spoke with other individuals, I think this is growing pains within the industry. The first decade and a half, we had the Wild West, and now everybody's starting to come to the table and say, you know what, it was great that everything was the Wild West. However, we need to become more responsible, and the liability needs to properly distribute, just like it does in the real world business economy.
And the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of the people that are applying for the insurance are brand new contractors. With the economy the way that it is, a lot of people, were laid off or were downsized, and they're starting their own company. And they don't have the, historical knowledge. They don't have the experience. And so, with growing pains of anyone starting their new business, mistakes happen. So it's very important for those newbies to make sure that they have the proper coverage and, so that they can get their feet wet.
Yes, ma'am. And I had one kind of final question. I don't know if you can speak to it, because it doesn't deal with E&O, but I noticed when I was going over your guys' site, you guys actually deal with other policies. And one of the things we actually encountered out here was the fact that we found it to be far more fiscally responsible to become our own notary. And so I wondered, in addressing perhaps bonds for notaries, surety bonds, in the hypothetical that a company may want to make a run, if you will, on the HUD contract. Do you guys deal with and also your auto policies? Do you guys deal with insurance coverage like that?
All day long. We have an entire bonding department that does nothing but contracting and performance and bid bonds and notary bonds. We can help you out on any type of bond. And our auto, also not a problem. We can handle anything from a guy in the truck to a large fleet. It's not a problem at all. We just, would need the required information to get a quote. And our commitment to the quoting, no matter what type of insurance it is, that as soon as we have a completed application with everything that we need to quote, you'll have a quote within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, depending on the type of coverage. And our other commitment, which I think we've seen has been kind of a competition separator for us, is issuing certificates. When one of our clients or one of the vendors starts working for a new company, they obviously need proof of insurance, and they're not going to be able to get that work until the certificate is presented. And our commitment is that if you send in a request for a certificate, you will have it within 24 hours to present to your new client.
Well, now I can say that actually happened for us, and that was one of the things I'd actually brought up with a lot of people. Just the quick response time. And time is money at the end of the day.
Exactly. We recognize that, and it's huge. The last thing we want is for you guys not to be able to get a job because, someone's not returning a phone call or not able to address, a quick request. To be able to issue a certificate is not a laboring task, and we just want to make sure that you guys are out there making as much money as you can.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to thank you for actually speaking with me, and also, in turn speaking with everybody else. I mean, there's no live people or anything, but I mean,
Sure.
because I did an extreme search of the internet, and there is nothing out there, let alone anything that succinctly brings together all the points that you have. And
Right.
I really think this will be a positive thing. I wish you and your company the best, going into the future. And once again, I want to thank you for your time, and
No,
I'll
I really
follow up.
appreciate it. And if
Yep.
anyone ever, does have an issue where, everyone sometimes someone can always wake up on the wrong side of the bed. So if somebody did not have a pleasant experience with Brunswick, or is not happy with their service or their quote, I am putting my personal information. They can email me directly, call my direct line, and I'm happy to speak with anybody who has further questions or would want to talk about anything, their experience with Brunswick. We're very hands-on. We're family-owned. I'm actually the third generation
Wow.
of the ownership. So we're all about customer satisfaction, because if we don't have happy clients, we don't have a business. So
No, ma'am. And just to close, this is for the people who would want to apply and get more information through you guys. This is on the internet at the brunswickcompanies.com, and in the index, if you look to the left-hand side, you're going to see in that sidebar the mortgage field services area, and that's where they can go and apply. Excellent. And this has been a great afternoon. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. The first step, you have to fill out that online application. I can lots of people call and want to talk about it or do things over the phone, and until we have that online application, we can't really do a whole lot. So that's the first step, is to log on, fill that out, and we'll promise to get you a quote within that 24 to 48 hours.
Excellent. That's the one thing I tried to point out to some of the people. Everybody kept saying, well, what's this number? What's that number? And I tried to explain to them, look, everything is a different variable, because some people make more, some make less. Some people have had claims, some haven't. You just have 1,000 different variables. And,
exactly. That's why we need that application. The main variables, so that you know, is that location, where in the country you're located. How many years of experience you have within the industry, your revenues, if you've had claims in the past, if you've had insurance in the past. We need to know if you're coming off of a policy, so that we can continue coverage from a certain date, which is very important for us to know. And also just, if there's any other ancillary issues that we need to know about, and it's all on that application.
Excellent. Well, hey, ma'am, I really appreciate your time today, and it's been Michelle Hirsch. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, Hirsch.
Excellent. She's Vice President over at Brunswick Companies, and I'll follow up with you in the future, and I really appreciate your time. You be safe today, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Have a great day.
You too, ma'am. Bye.
Bye-bye.